All right, good morning, folks. It is August 22nd, 2025, and particularly here in the northern part of the state, and I think in the majority of the rest of the state, there has been a decided turn towards fall, and everybody has probably breathed a big sigh of relief. We had rain this week, we've had cooler temperatures, nighttime temperatures in the Cleveland area, folks, to get down into the forecast to get down into the 50s. Fabulous, right? Everyone sit back and relax. But it's also that time where we're going to start working on renovations. Online today for Tough Grass Team Times, we got Dr. Dave Gardner, Dr. Dave Shetlar, and we also have a special guest, Dr. Mike Fidanza from Penn State University. Dr. Gardner, do you want to take it away with a weed update?
I certainly do. All right, so first I have to share my screen. So yes, it is August 22nd, and most years we get all excited when there's the first cool snap, and then the first week of September we get a day or two with highs in the 90s. But they're not forecasting that right now, and we can all kind of wish that hopefully today and tomorrow will be the last two warm days, high temperatures above 85. But as Ed said, it's time to start thinking about renovation and fall activities and things. But you probably still have crabgrass too, and if you do, at least out at the OTF Center, after we have our first bout of weather in the 70s, and the sun angle starting to get a little bit lower, the day length is decreasing by 2.5 minutes per day now. The crabgrass starts to fade out on its own, and so while you could still put out a post-emergence herbicide at this point, I would just map it out and know where to put a pre-emerge next spring, because crabgrass is going to go away on its own in relatively short order. Again, a post-emergence application now will just, hasten the process, and crabgrass does become a lot easier to control. So you can pretty much throw anything at it that's labeled, and you should be able to accelerate the pace of its decline. But again, when it comes to seeding, that's what we're turning our attention to now. And a reminder that, we can seed most of our grasses until about September 30th. Kentucky bluegrass, we say September 15th because it takes much, much longer to establish. Look, you see all the time contractors throwing out grass seed in the second week of November, and somehow magically the next spring there is cover. Okay, so these deadlines are not firm, but if you're trying to make it more likely that you're going to be satisfied with your efforts next spring, these are the deadlines. Anything after that, you're maybe not going to have as much success. But when it comes to getting those areas ready for all of the undesirable grasses like bent grass or orchard grass or etc., pretty much we're saying glyphosate now. So I mean, sometimes or in the past I've talked about using selective herbicides to control things like Bermuda grass, nimblewell, bent grass. We're past that window. If you want to renovate this fall and you still have those types of grasses, then glyphosate is basically your choice. Preferably, if you could do it more than one time to make sure that you really do kill what's there, that would be better. If you're using one of those glyphosate alternatives, check the label, follow it carefully. One of the nice things about glyphosate is that after it binds to the soil, it becomes unavailable for biological activity, like messing up your seedlings when they're trying to germinate. Whereas some of the glyphosate replacements have a little bit longer of a residual activity, and so you have to be careful with how far in advance you apply those products compared to your seeding date. Now, if you have a history of weed pressure in the areas that you intend to overseed, especially if you have winter annuals, annual bluegrass, the broadleaf weeds, etc., I recommend an application of tenacity with that overseeding effort or that seeding effort. And so what you do is you put the seed out as you normally would, incorporate it, and then you spray the tenacity, then you put your mulch down, and then you begin to water as normal. And mesotrione does a pretty good job as a pre-emergence herbicide of preventing just about everything from germinating except for our desirable turf grasses. It's actually kind of cool the way that works. Never underestimate the importance of a mulch when you're doing that seeding. Again, the whole point here is to keep the soil surface uniformly moist after the seed has been applied until it germinates and establishes a root system. And so the question becomes, how long or how often do you have to irrigate? And the answer is as often as necessary to keep the upper couple of inches uniformly moist to facilitate germination. You don't have to irrigate an inch at a time, 3 times a day. You don't have to flood the area. You just have to keep it uniformly moist. At this time of the year, that might require up to three times a day that you would irrigate, but that usually backs off to no more than once a day by late September. But again, uniform moisture is very important. And then one other thing that I want to put on your radar to start thinking about is that if you had a problem with these weeds this spring, winter annuals, chickweed, henbit, purple dead nettle, hairy bittercress, that might have been because the drought last year really messed up a lot of our turf, really thinned it out. And so winter annuals had a banner spring, which means that they produced a lot of seed, which means that you might have a problem with these again this fall. So in areas where you had those issues, remember that while you can try to control those post-emergence in April, the problem is that a lot of our herbicides don't work so well when it's March and the weather's a little cooler, but all the winter annuals are flowering. Post-emergence in November can work fairly well, but if you put down a pre-emergence application, preferably of dithiopyr, but also prodiamine, in those areas where you had a problem with winter annuals, that's something to start thinking about doing. You'd probably want to get that out no later than the first week of September. Ed, that's what I have for today.
Thank you, Dave. I do have a follow-up question on that. I had someone contact me this morning, actually. They have a problem with creeping Charlie. And from the standpoint of the two herbicide options you mentioned, I'm assuming you're going to say that glyphosate is going to be more appropriate than mesotrione for that.
Yes. If they're renovating the area, then yeah, glyphosate is going to be the better option.
Okay. That's kind of where I thought you were going to land on that. Dr. Shetlar, have you got an insect update?
Yes, I do. It's kind of interesting. Dave was talking about the crabgrass. I try to help my neighbors however I can, and I noticed that they had this giant crabgrass patch right at their driveway that was extending out over the walkway, and they said, "What do we do about that?" And I reached down and pulled it out, and then I had this giant thing, and I threw it on the sidewalk and said, "Just mow that thing over and grind it all up." That's about all you can do right now. And then I looked down, and there was a very nice second instar mass chafer that had also come up that was there. So it appears that the grubs are developing a little bit slower than normal. We actually, at this time of the year, we might see a third instar, but this was it appeared to be an early second instar. So they're kind of like what I would expect with the flight of the mass chafers primarily in July. But they've reached second instar. They're in this cool weather. They're going to feed like mad and become third instars probably by the middle of September. And of course, that's the time that we start to see damage. They're in what I call the land shrimp size at that time, and that's also the time that the skunks and raccoons like to feed on them. So my feeling is we've had excellent weather for egg development and larval development. We've had those periodic rains. It hasn't been excessively hot to slow down the grub. So keep your eyes out. We're getting pretty close to that part of the season where we could see that. What I wanted to put in here, let's see if I can do this, is that our friend Rick Brandenburg, now this is a posting of late July, but I noticed he posted another one this week. I don't know if it was on X or Facebook or something else, that he said that they're just being overrun by the fall armyworms down there. And of course, with the hurricane coming by, I'm going, oh God, here we go again. But the hurricane missed us. And so we're not getting those storm fronts blowing in. I have been using my light trap. I think I only got one fall armyworm last week. Actually, I got 3 yellow striped armyworms in my light trap, which can also show up in the turf grass. They're a bit different. In the turf, they'll appear almost black in color with a bright yellow stripe down them. But if you look at their head capsule, they're still a Spodoptera armyworm. They'll have that little inverted white Y on their head. So if you see them, they're possibly around, but I'm still not expecting any major outbreaks like we had in 2021. So get prepared for any rescue treatments for white grubs. I don't think we're going to see any major armyworm outbreaks at this time of the year. And so just, pay attention to what Dave talked about and renovation, because I have a feeling now with this cool weather, you're going to find where the bill bugs did kill the turf back in July and early August on that second generation. A lot of times that bill bug damage just looks like the turf went dormant, but then it doesn't recover here at the time that it should be recovering. So get ready to seed those. I'm a real fan of slit seeding. Dave talked about, preparing the turf bed and so forth, but I'm a real fan of slit seeding in using the glyphosate to kill it out. And I've had success as soon as it starts to turn yellow. You can actually slit seed in and use the old turf as kind of your mulch. I've had pretty good success with that with the tall fescue going that kind of a route. So that's my update for this week.
Thanks, Dave. You're hanging in there with the predictions. The only thing I will say is that Dr. Brandenburg's counterpart, Terry Bielison, did post the map for armyworm samples. And for some reason, she had a sample confirmed, I think is how they rate it, in Cleveland. And I was like, ha! But that doesn't mean, of course, that they're doing any damage. It just means that the sample was found.
Yeah. You can you'll find a few armyworms here and there, but that massive number that just mows the turf down, I haven't heard any reports of that yet.
You're jinxing us, David. You're jinxing.
I try my best. I really want to see some good bug stuff this year, and it's been, other than the bill bugs and the annual bluegrass weevil, it's been a little sparse.
There's only one person that would say that, and that's you, right? No one else.
Yeah.
Okay, just to follow up on that, on the cool down and changes. So I was at a lawn last week where they had seeded in July, and this was the exact reason why you don't do this in Ohio. And cottony blight Pythium was starting to run rampant and destroy all the hard work that they had done. There was also another one where they had seeded in late May, and the home had been very judicious, water, very successful, and then he went, look, it looked great Friday night, came out Saturday morning, and it all seemed like it was hanging over and rotten. More Pythium. So that is probably the main reason we don't do or recommend seeding in the summertime here in Ohio. But with the cool down, you're going to see a reduction in problems like that. And if the temperatures start to drop back into the 50s, then these conditions will become far more ideal for that seeding process. I do want to talk to Dr. Mike Fidanza here. Dr. Mike, I want you to give us some comment on soil and soil preparation for seeding and renovation.
All right. Hey, okay. It's holding the camera for me. I hope everybody can see me okay. Glad to be here. It's nice to be in this, what's called the Buckeye State. Is that what we call this? Anyway, my wife's Aunt Lois lives in Cleveland. So I have some family ties here. Don't hold that against me. So let's talk about soils. I work with the Lawn Care Association of Pennsylvania, those the LCAP folks, as we call them. And this time of year, like in Ohio, there's going to be a lot of reseeding, renovation. There's some dead turf out there. Even in my backyard, there's some spots that need to be renovated. So one of the things we like to do is get a soil test, right? We recommend a soil test. And the reason is, you take a soil sample, send it off to your soil test lab. At Penn State, we have the Penn State Ag Analytical Services Lab. At Ohio State, you obviously have labs as well. And really, what I like to look for is the pH primarily. Okay, I don't want to make this overly complicated. I like to look at the pH. The ideal range, right, is between 6 and 7. And the thing about the pH is, if it's in the fives, if it's on the acidic side, this is the opportunity to apply liming materials to raise the pH. Okay. If it's above 7 or 7.5 or something like that, I think that's fine. At least speaking for Pennsylvania, that works out okay. But in Pennsylvania, we tend to have these more acidic soils. They can get into the 5s. So this is the chance to make that correction with the reseeding and the renovation period. Let's call it. This is when we can add lime and correct the pH, raise the pH. I don't really pay attention to the other components of that soil test. In Pennsylvania, our soils are high in phosphorus. So there's really no phosphorus deficiencies that to really speak of for the most part for our lawns in Pennsylvania. Potassium is typically fine. Other nutrients that are on the soil test, that they're okay. For lawns, let's not overcomplicate it. Focus on the pH. Then what we have is let's talk about soil structure for a minute here. We're fortunate in Pennsylvania, that in central PA and southeastern Pennsylvania, we have the mushroom industry. They produce the edible white button mushrooms, and a byproduct of that is a compost material. So this is an opportunity to add some organic matter, some processed, properly aged and refined organic matter to the soil. So we find a lot of lawn care folks will do that this time of year. When they go in to renovate a lawn, they'll pull cores, they'll core aerate, remove the cores, backfill them with the mushroom compost, aged or processed compost, or a compost soil mix. There's other compost materials as well, but in Pennsylvania, that's one that's most readily available, the mushroom compost based material. But again, there's other good quality compost as well. So that's a chance to add some organic matter back into that soil, and that'll give you some long-term nutrient release, right? And so that part's very important. The pH, pay attention to the soil structure. Lawns in Pennsylvania, a lot of our lawns are sort of compacted, sort of heavy clay soils. So this is a chance again to add some organic matter to get some aeration into that root zone. And then follow Dr. Gardner's recommendations with the proper seeding, but then you want to deal with the weeds that are going to show up. When homeowners go to seed, what comes up as well as all these kinds of crazy weeds come up. So Dr. Gardner's he's on top of that. I think he recommended the mesotrione product. I believe that was recommended.
Yeah.
The question I get is, what about starter fertilizer? And that's important too. When you're applying in Pennsylvania, we have the nutrient management laws now on the books. You're allowed to use phosphorus fertilizer only as a starter. So you have your nitrogen, your NP and K component in the starter fertilizer. You can add some phosphorus then to get the seeding establishment and all that. But I wouldn't recommend, some folks, not professional lawn care folks, right? But some of our do-it-yourself homeowners, they'll keep sort of dumping nitrogen on the lawn all fall and into the winter. Like, don't do that. It's not necessary. You get the seedlings right up and running, get the turf established, and then go back into your normal, fertility program with you folks here at Ohio State have dialed in for your homeowners, I'm sure. But does that help, Ed, with
Yeah, I think Dr. Mike said enough controversial stuff there. It'll get him shot at, but he runs back across the border, and he's fine.
I'm gonna go to Culver's first and get a hamburger. We don't have Culver's in Pennsylvania.
Well, that's a Wisconsin thing. You need to go to Wendy's.
Yeah, he needs to see my front lawn that is on rubble. There's very little soil. It's mainly rock and rubble and other stuff.
Well, again,
I have a better word for it, but there's stuff out there.
Yeah, and we see that in Pennsylvania. That's where we need to ship you some mushroom compost.
Yeah.
Man, selling the mushroom compost pretty hard.
Yes.
Okay, we will wrap it up with that for this week, folks. It looks like we're getting into a bit of a better set of conditions. Keep in mind, we have the Ohio Sports Field Managers event. That's on September 9th here in Worcester. And then the actual Worcester golf scholarship outing is on September 29th at Pine Hills. I believe the We Want event is also the same day. I didn't think of that. That's my fault, I guess. And I know that the OTF scholarship event, I think, is either coming up pretty soon. So take advantage of those opportunities to network and meet with your peers. But we will leave it at that for this week, and hopefully everybody enjoys the respite for the next week. Thank you all.